how did your childhood experiences, whether it is the family or just the neighborhood that you grew up in, how did that impact or contribute to you as a father?
Well, if you want to talk about community, I grew up in an urban community like others,
Mhm.
and but I've always felt like there was more to life. You
Mhm.
know, I'm just looking at the community that I grew up in, and I'm not seeing greatness. And there are many reasons for it, but I'm not seeing it. And
Mhm.
I remember as I grew up and I got my education, and now I have my own home and what have you. At the time, we didn't have a house; we were living in an apartment. But as I was looking at the community, I started to say, I got to give my children a better shot at life.
Mhm.
And so I had to kind of go and get to some spaces where I knew that they would grow up in an environment that was safe, where they can go to school that it was safe. And so I based that on my upbringing because although I survived it, there were many things that were wanting. There
Mhm.
were many things that were missing. And you remember, you can only, you know, either you're going to take what you see and say, this is not it, and I'm gonna go find it, or you see what you want and now you go after it because you've seen it.
Right. Right.
But either way, you got to make a move.
Right.
Either way, you got to make a move. So yeah, so the upbringing environment was one thing that motivated me or affected my thinking as I had children. And then as I mentioned, my relationship with my dad, like I said, he was a loving man and he cared for us. We never had a night we didn't eat. We always had a roof over our head and clothes on the back. But there was just some relational things that were challenging. And I remembered that I would not do those things with my son. And then when I was with my son the other day, again, I say he's like 34 years old, him and I talking, and he says to me, Dad, when I'm raising D3, sometimes some things that I say to him, I hear you saying those same things to me in my head. So, and I'm telling him the same thing. And so that's where our relationship is these many years later because of the kind of relationship that I had with him over the years. But that was really birthed out of my own personal experience with my father. And I wanted to change the dynamics as I had my own son.
Cool. Now, are there any things that you wish you would have known entering fatherhood that you knew now, or something that you said, "Ah, man, no one really explained that, or showed me that, or prepared me for that"?
Wow, that's a very good question, and I think it's a tough one to answer in terms of fatherhood.
Mhm.
Um, you know, I guess, I mean, you talked about preparation. I mean, you always want to be better prepared.
Mhm.
You really do. But sometimes in life, you just haven't, you're just not there yet. Some people grow up with what we call the silver spoon. You
Right.
know, so I mean, you kind of have it from the start. You can buy the kid anything, all that craziness,
Yeah.
and sometimes sometimes you come from a background experience where you don't have everything. But I think the one thing that you do have that I really think makes the difference is your love for your child.
Right.
I mean, if you have love for your child, then you're fighting tooth and nail to get to a place where you're able to take care of the child, you're able to provide for the family. It's when you don't have, that deep love. Some people say, I love you, but they're living somewhere else.
Mhm. Mhm.
That's kind of challenging, and I understand. I'm not here to knock on anybody's experience, but I think that when you really, really, really want to do it right, number one, you try to find the right girl. Oh my goodness. You can have a kid, but if you're not with the right person, it's going to go sideways a lot of times. Now you have to be a weekend dad, a dad that pays child support. I always say one of the main reasons why I stay with my wife is because I don't want the judge telling me how much money I have to give to my kids. I said I want it where if my kids say, Dad, give me $10, I say here's five and leave me alone.
Right.
But if the judge gives me a court order and I got to give him the $10, I said we can't
Yeah,
have that.
yeah.
I want to control my money for this kid. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But that comes that comes from building a relationship in the home with the mother, all those good things. That way you get through this journey prayerfully with everything being good.
Okay, that sounds good. Now, what is one thing, if you can look back, either as a husband or a father, what was the one thing that you look back at and say, ah, I didn't get that right. I need to fix that. What was that one thing that you felt like I need to redo? If I had a chance to do it over again, I would do something completely different.
Well, first of all, there is no one thing.
Right.
There, there's no there is no such thing in fatherhood or marriage where God said, if one thing I had to do it all over. No, because there's a whole list.
Right, right.
There is a whole list of things that you did not do right, that you could have done better.
Hmm.
And I always say this, people say if I had to do it all over again, I would do it differently. But the truth is, if you had to do it all over again with the experience you now have, you would do it differently.
Hmm.
And so raising children is always an experience. Every day there's something new, there's something different. Again, going back to the son and the daughter, there have been plenty of times when I didn't say the right thing.
Right.
Or I didn't handle something right. But I think that the most important thing for any father who doesn't do things right is to be reflective
Hmm.
by saying, all right, how could I have done it better? What could I have said? And then don't just leave the issue, you know, leave the issue challenged or unsettled.
Hmm.
You got to kind of get in there and settle some issues because you may have to come back, whether it's to your kid, whether it's to your wife, and say, listen, I didn't handle that well. And, I want you to forgive me for it. But the next time I'm going to take a little bit, I'll look at it differently and then I'll make it better. So I really can't think of one specific thing, only because I know that there are so many things that I know that if I was to get a pen and piece of paper and write it down, we would be here a while of the errors
Yeah.
and the mistakes you make as a father. But here's what you got to do when you make errors and mistakes as a dad. You have to build up. What is that when you have? I don't play poker or gamble too much, but when you have some credit stored up.
I have
Oh,
no idea.
yeah, yeah. Well, anyway, see, you have to build up your relationship with your kids and your spouse, because when you do make the error, you need some credits in the bank.
Right, 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 right.
That's what I'm trying to say. You need to have stored up some credits, and like I need one right now. I need a token. I need you know, I done messed up. I'm cashing in the chip.
Yeah, yeah.
I'm cashing in the chip because I done messed up. And see, if you don't have no chips to
Mhm,
cash in,
mhm.
when you do make that mistake, the sorries and it don't work too well because you haven't stored up any trust. You haven't stored up any, relationship. And that's just across the board with anything else, because in life you're going to make errors, you're going to make mistakes.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. So when you made mistakes, who did you go to for counsel or advice, or how did you realize, or if there was another person, another male figure, or anybody who gave you advice and said, "Hey, David, you messed up this one."
Yeah, well, you have to have mentors as a father.
Hmm.
You have to have mentors, and mentors are various. Meaning that if you're in a religious context, you may have a pastor
Right.
who's a mentor. You could have a best friend that you trust. That's a mentor. Um, you're going to have different mentors, and sometimes you need different people for different situations
Right.
that you can go to where you've made mistakes, and someone where you can be honest with, where you can almost, depending on what it is, pour out your heart, and then you can trust that person not to tell your business.
Right. Right. Right.
You know, everybody needs one of those. I don't care who you are. You need somebody that you can go to and tell your business, and they won't tell your business.
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
Because otherwise, you know, and I'll be honest, because from my 15 years of pastoring, I've counseled many people, and what I know is that there have been plenty of relationships that would have gone south if everything would have been revealed.
Right. Right. Right.
But sometimes you need somebody to be open and honest with and say, "Hey, I screwed up. I need you to cover me."
Mhm.
And sometimes that can help a person get back on the right track. Everybody needs somebody to cover them for something.
Yep. Yep.
You know what I'm saying? So to get back on the right track.
Right. 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 Now,
Yeah.
someone once told me, they said, and I wrote it down because it was interesting. I'm interested to hear your take on it. They said, being a father is like working a full time job with no pay, with no breaks, PTO, and little acknowledgement or credit.
Mm.
How would you respond to that? Do you
Uh,
agree?
I mean, I understand it. I mean, I think a lot of times people refer to mothers that way
hmm
than fathers. Let me just walk through each one of those.
Yeah.
Give me each one of those for a minute, what you just
Okay.
said.
Being a father was like working a full time job with no pay.
No, I'm not going to agree with that.
Okay.
And what's the rest of it?
No pay, no breaks.
And what's the next one? The
Uh,
PTO, that personal time off or
yep.
something?
PTO. Yep.
And the last one?
Little acknowledgement.
I mean, I understand because I think the person who said it um, may be trying to say that fatherhood is challenging,
hmm
fatherhood is difficult, and it is. But I won't agree that there are no rewards. I don't agree that there are no payoffs, um, because I believe that there are. I mean, if you are being your dad, I mean, you only been a dad a year and a half, whatever it has been,
hmm
and every day that that boy looks up into your eyes, that's a payday.
Right. Right.
Every day he grabs, and because by now he knows who his father is,
hmm
that's a payday.
Right.
And I understand how sometimes we may not always get acknowledged like a mother, like moms do, but I think that there are reasons for that. And I was just sharing on another show that for women, being connected to a child is natural.
hmm
Why? A mother spends 9 months being connected to that baby from inception to birth.
hmm
But a father has to be connected to that child. He has to now want to be connected.
Right. Right.
It's not natural for him.
Right.
That's why dudes can, when stuff get hot and crazy, they can easily take off because the connection is not natural.
hmm
You very see a woman take off on her child, right?
Right.
It's almost unheard of
Right. Right.
because there's a natural connection. But for a father, he has to want to be connected. He has to desire connection to his children. And if he doesn't want to be connected, guess what? He won't be.
hmm
But I believe that there are great rewards for being a father. I would never say that I haven't had a payday. I would never say I haven't had, a personal time off. I have enjoyed my 30 plus years of being a two-time dad and now a two-time grandfather. I'm not going to say that every day was great, but it wasn't every day wasn't great on the job that I was working where they were paying me with money. It wasn't
Right,
great,
right,
but
right,
I went anyway.
right,
You
right,
know what I'm
right,
saying?
right, right.
So for me, and I don't know who said it, but for me, I would not put fatherhood where there's no compensation, there's no joy, there's no reward, there's no payment. It may not be dollars and cents,
Mhm.
but when I look down at my kids and when I look down at my son has his son, and when he says to me as a 30 something year old, Dad, when I'm talking to my son, I hear you.
Mhm.
Man, that's a payday.
Right, 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 right.
That's
So
just David Walker talking.
yeah, and we love it. We love it. So, what does it mean to be a black father? A black father. I have to emphasize that again. A black father, especially
Yeah.
because of the stereotype that you know we're never around. What does that mean for you?
Every day I understand my reality in this world, that I am a black man in America.
Hmm.
And there is a perception that comes with that. And the majority of it is negative.
Hmm.
Not because it's true, but it is a way of oppressing, suppressing, demonizing, inhumanely treating a particular group of people. As long as black people are demonized and made to look in a negative light as they have been for centuries,
Hmm.
it's a winning strategy. And the problem is, many of us who are African Americans have fallen for that perception.
Hmm.
Absenteeism and not around and not supporting and all the crime. We have fallen victim to the stereotype. But what I have done in my life is I'm cognizant of what they're saying, but I won't allow them to prove themselves to be right.
Right.
No, you will not put me in that category of a person who doesn't take care of their children,
Hmm.
who will father children all out of wedlock all over the place, who don't want to work and all these things. So I'm conscious of it. And so every day I have worked diligently and worked hard to make sure that you don't put that label on me.
Hmm. Hmm.
And I have raised my children. I tell them very lovingly, because I try to balance the race relation, especially because my son works in a Caucasian church in a Caucasian context. So I have to balance that whole process. But there are times when I make it clear that he is a black man. His
Hmm.
son is a black boy going to be a black man.
Right.
But you have to be aware of that because people will tell you that. They will distinguish you from other people. And if they're going to say anything about you, let them say that's a man, even if they call you a black man, but that's a man who takes care of his family, who takes care of his children, who has gone to school to educate himself, and who have done right, by his family. That's what you want them to say. Because they're going to say something, but don't give them the negative. Because if you go that way, then it's like, see, I told you, that's the way they are. That's what they do. No, we're not having that over here. Yes, I am a black man, but I am a black man conscious of it, and I'm a black man who takes care of his family, who takes care of his children, and now taking care of his grands, but from a distance.
Right. 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 Yeah. Now, now we're almost done, but I want to go back to your last point about being a black man and being proud of it.
Yeah, man.
Because when you think of situations like George Floyd, you think about Trayvon Martin, and you realize that it and countless others. I don't want to fail to mention anybody. Um, but you think about, I know a lot of parents told me the first thing I thought about was, where's my son? Where's my daughter? Can I hold them? Can I just show them that I love them and things of that nature? How does social, you know, complex situations like those and countless others and unfair treatment in the justice system and the police force and stuff like that, how does that impact you as a father, and how are those conversations that you have with your children and your grandchildren, and obviously when they get of age?
Yeah, I mean they impact me similarly to other black people, black males who have children. Um, we're conscious of this world, the reality of the world. It's a world that we came into, we didn't create, but it was given to us. Um, the treatment of black people, it's been a reality. We know it, and so I tried to teach my children when they were growing up, and I'm telling my son and he's telling his son, because we have conversations now. Even though he's a grown man, we still have conversation. I don't necessarily tell him how to behave, 10 and 2 on the wheel, and
Mm,
the talk, as they say, because he's a grown man, and so he knows what's going on. But we do make sure that we are clear that we are black men,
mhm,
and we have to navigate differently. We have to think differently, sometimes even unfairly. If I could just give you a quick story, one time I was in this Caucasian neighborhood, and I wanted to get some directions, and it was these two Caucasian women who were standing near me, and I needed some information, and they were the only two that was closest to me. And I had to be, even though it was unfair to me, I had to be conscious of my environment on how I approached them,
mhm,
because I didn't want to create anything that shouldn't be. Somebody may say, well, that's unfair. It is unfair. But I realized that that was a reality that I was dealing with. So I need you to know that there's nothing here. You don't have to be concerned, but I need some information. So you have to approach it with the mindset that sometimes other people can misinterpret your presence.
right, 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 right.
And sometimes we don't process that our presence can be misinterpreted. Is it fair? No, it is not fair. Is it a reality? Absolutely. And
Mm,
it's something that you deal with every day. So you have to be ahead of them before crisis comes, because a lot of times, people calling cops and all that things, and we know bad things happen in certain situations.
right.
So I am conscious of it. I've talked with my children about it, even in the context that they're in. Like I said, they're in a predominantly Caucasian context, and we still have true conversations. And sometimes I don't pull back, although I don't generally sense anything that's alarming in that relationship. But I still make him aware of you're a black man every day, 24/7.
Right, 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 right. And that's important. I know that's one of the things that I'm kind of looking forward to, but I'm kind of, you know, scared of and fearful of with my son, because I've been on the short end of the stick of on a lot of those situations, and it would devastate me if my son had to experience some of the things that I experienced. Now, I'm not saying that I experienced the most oppressive lifestyle or anything like that, but I have my share of experiences that I would be completely crushed and devastated if I found out Junior went through. So it's definitely something that has to continue to be talked about, and that safe space, which is why we're here create that safe space for us to actually talk about it. We're getting ready to wrap up, but I want to ask you, because I'm very interested, are there things that you have done as a grandfather, or that you do as a grandfather, that you didn't as a father, or some things that you didn't do as a father that you do now that you are a grandfather?
Yeah, grandparenting is it's a unique, and I'm gonna use the word beast. It's a beast. Because you definitely and again, not the grandparent that has to take care of their child's child.
Hmm.
That's a whole different dynamic. A grandparent that has to raise their child's child is a whole different dynamic. But when you get the grandparent role, I think like it's intended to be, your children are raising their children. You come over every now and then and visit. They come over to you and visit. You get to love on them, and then after you finish loving on them, then you send them back home to their parents.
Right, right, right.
that, so So what do grandparents do? I think that grandparent love is a love that's without restrictions.
Mhm.
You really don't have to totally focus on, let's say, the discipline aspect, because that's the job of their parent.
Right.
Your job as a parent, as a grandparent, is to focus on the unconditional love.
Mhm.
I mean, yeah, there's some things in your grandchildren you're going to always check when you don't like it, but you know that the primary responsibility of raising or disciplining or correcting your child is really your children's responsibility.
Right.
So now you just get your grands and you just love them. We go to the park, we do this, we do that. So you do treat your grandchildren differently because the responsibility is different. I
Right.
think it's not, I don't think that a grandparent can clearly explain what it means to be a grandparent. You can only really, you can't explain it. You can just, you experience it when it happens.
Right. 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 Right.
So and again, the time that David the third, he's only 5, but they live in New York. I live in Florida, so we're not around long. We have our moments where we're together a week at a time or on vacation, things like that. He does a lot of Zoom with his grandmother, but so we don't have the chance to really impact him on the regular, like you lived in the same city or in the same block and all that kind of stuff. But I do think that grandparents love their grands unconditionally because they don't have the responsibility, if all things are correct, of having to discipline the child when it comes time for the child to go home. You say, hey, thanks for sending them over. I'll see you the next time in 6 weeks. Bye. That kind of, listen, and then you go back to living your life. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? Bye. See you later. The kid is crying because he want to stay. Bye. See you later. I'll call you tomorrow. But
That's
I love it, man. I love it. I love it.
yeah. The experience I have, I I know that your son has had to say at some point, Dad, will you chill, please?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Oh man, they do. They do. I be getting on his nerves. Like,
It's funny because my wife was talking to my mom the other day,
okay, all
and
right,
my mom says, does Junior need some clothing? And so my wife says, no, we just got a bunch of this, whatever that particular clothing was. I can't think off the top of my head. So I ran
mm-hmm.
into my mom. I ran into my mom at the mall yesterday, and what's the
Okay.
first thing that my mom did? She bought the same exact clothing that my wife just said we didn't need. So my wife said, I just said it. They got a mini pool. They got so much stuff, and I'm like, yo, what are y'all doing?
That's what my wife. Oh my God! Every time, and her and I, our Amazon thing is hooked up together,
Hmm.
and every day I'll be hearing ping, 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 something she's sending to the baby from Amazon. And my daughter-in-law said the same thing. Mom, we gotta know. We gotta ping, ping, ping. My wife never did that for our kids. Wasn't no ping, ping, ping. Those kids barely had stuff
I said the same thing to my dad. I'm like, you buying miniature pools? We asked you for a pool growing up. You said absolutely not.
exactly. We were struggling. I mean, most parents struggle when
Right.
their kids are growing up, but when grandkids come around, they loaded.
Yeah.
Give that kid all that money.